But this is some really tangible, strong, actionable things that you can do to bring your product to market. And it's honestly, it's a lot easier than you may think. Some really key things that you can establish right away, all before that you can do right here on the internet with your own time, long before you ever get a factory and suppliers involved. And I know it's a daunting task. I know that when you think about, oh well, I could never do that. You can. It's very possible. It's understanding what those steps and what those areas that you need to make sure that you're answering and that you're prepared for, so that you can continue to be successful as you move from stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and beyond. So let's go through those steps, and I think you'll come away from this video understanding that it's really is possible, but you got to put the work in, you got to put the time in, and you got to have a goal and a vision for what that looks like. So we'll go through these steps, and I think you'll come away from the other side with a real good understanding of what it's going to take to be able to bring your idea and your next invention to the market. Listen, make sure as we dive into some of these details, really diving in, that you like and subscribe to this page, because you're going to see more and more of these critical questions being answered. If you have questions, you don't know how to do something within your business, or you are looking for advice, shoot me a comment. I'm happy to shoot a video and put together my experience on that area so that you can use that, because I guarantee if you're asking the question, there's other people asking the question as well. So you have an idea, you've proven it, you think it's a good idea, and you've come up and kind of developed what that new widget, if you will, is. Obviously that's a big first step, right? Having the idea. But what is that market research, and really kind of dives into step 1 or step 2, depending on if you've already got the idea, right? Is establishing, okay, what does that market research look like? Do I have a target customer in mind? Do I have key competitors information? Do I know who my competitors are with this product? Is there going to be, what's the potential demand? So, understanding that key market, let's just say that your target market is bass fishing. Well, 60% of our overall industry is the bass market. It's related to bass fishing. It's the number one species when it comes to new product and brands and consumer sales. And so it's a big market, right? A lot of big brands. There's a lot of massive brands with a lot of massive marketing budgets. So, but again, that is my target market. If I'm coming up with a new item specifically for the bass market, I've got a new jig, bass fishing jig, swimming jig. What is that target market? Who's the leader in that market? What is the seasonality of that market? What is the size of that market? My competitors, as I mentioned, is who's the leader in that market? What is the price range of those products that are play within the category of that jig? Who are my key competitors? Are there industry leaders within that market, right? Do I have some new and innovative trendsetters on social media that I need to be aware of? Understanding kind of that within that target market of that item, who those target customers are, who those key competitors are, and understanding what that potential demand is important to identify. You've got your product idea, right? You've thought about it, maybe you've drawn it out, maybe you've shared it with a couple friends and fishing buddies, and you're like, yeah, that's a great idea. So now you're kind of stepping into that stage 2, which is the market research. Who are my target customers? Am I going to have to go through independents, or does that item get supported by national retailers? Is that something that you can find at a national retailer like a Bass Pro or Cabela's or a Dick's Sporting Goods or Academy or a Walmart? Would it be accepted based on the market share of that? Or is it a small niche-y, saltwater fly accessory that's going to have more of a specific niche or market that's not as widespread? So really asking those questions and understanding what that target market is is going to give you some of that ability to decide, well, how big is this idea, or how widespread am I going to be able to develop this new idea. Obviously, that target customer, right, is, yes, you can understand that, okay, every fisherman needs it, fair enough, but it's not the consumer, it's the customer. So you as a manufacturer, you as a new brand development, or brand manager, or your new company, you're going to be selling that product to your customers. Your customers are either an independent, a distributor, national retail, but that's the retailer that is actually going to put it out for the consumers. Now, your idea might be going to direct to consumer and through social media and building your own website, and that's fair. But understanding who your target customer is, either it's not the consumer, right? That's important to understand, but we'll get into that into the marketing section. But understanding who your customer is and how you're going to actually get that out there. Your key competitors, really knowing in their price points, their technology, what their brand vision and their look. They might have a fast, edgy, strong look to their product, or they might be touting quality and precision, or they might be talking about durability and strength and power. They might going after we're opening price point type of products and for the masses, or they're high end, high quality, low volume type. It really depends on where your product fits in to that market, but understanding the competitor that you'll be around, the ones in front of you, the ones behind you, the ones you want to go after head on, and really understanding and unpacking what that competitor landscape is critical, because it's going to allow you to really kind of unpeel that onion to figuring out what the best course of action is for your new product. So that's obviously really critical through this whole market research. You're going to be able to start to develop what that potential demand is. And that potential demand is going to just help you really understand the scalability of your product. You might have a product that's like, hey, it's a real niche-y, something for striper, up in the Northeast, and okay, well, that market, it's a big market, but it's a small window, seasonality. There's a lot of things that go into that, right? So understanding what that looks like to be able to put together your potential demand is important to understand at this point. You've got your product idea, you've got your market research, you've knocked all that piece out, so you can answer some of those questions on those areas. And now you're developing, you're having a kind of a rough development of it. You have a design, you're outlining the features, you're identifying the potential benefits and to the customer and the consumer. You're starting to detail what those value propositions are for your product and how those are going to allow you to differentiate yourself in the market. Listen, it might not be innovation. It just might be another product idea. But what your value is might be branding, it might be pricing, it might be quality. You understanding what that value proposition is now as you're developing that concept is important, so that you can continue to iron out those details as you start moving through these steps and then stages, right? Rough idea of what those features, those benefits of that specific product are going to be is important at these early stages. Again, nothing at the moment have we spent any money on, right? This whole stage one, steps 1 through 3 are all conceptual stuff that you can do and develop just through time and research and to really validate and understand what that idea is, right? Before we really step into starting to put some of that financials behind our idea. And so really those things, it can take you 3 hours based on your knowledge and experience, or it can take you 3 weeks. It really is depending on how quick and available some of that information is. And listen, reaching out to people that can help you with put those things together, that do that research, that understands the market. I mean, that's super important. Go to your local retail store and walk into the store and walk through what they're putting on the shelf and see if they even have something that is similar to what you're thinking about in designing. But asking those questions, understanding all of those key 3 areas are important as you get in there. Now you kind of move on to step 4. You really have to start to understand your sourcing and how you're going to develop the product. That doesn't mean you need to start sending emails and finding factories and suppliers and things, but as you move forward past this, you're going to really have to start to evaluate and get the manufacturers involved, because you're going to start asking some of the questions at this point that are going to really determine your success and your pricing and your details. You really need to start to involve your supplier so that you can start to answer some of those questions. And so this is where this kind of first touch point, kind of litmus test, where a lot of ideas kind of die. And they should, right? Because if they can't pass and have a concept through the development and a rough outline, and they understand the features, and they can answer some of the questions for the market and the size of the market and available customers and the key competitors, and really you start to realize either there's a good idea or not a good idea. It's really, this is that kind of that breaking point. Like, okay, am I going to say, that was a bad idea, let's try again, or that's a good idea and let's continue to pursue that. But at this point, like I said, you haven't spent any money. You just put in the time and energy, which obviously has a value, but it's stuff that you can do on your own time and through your own research, right? So now you've kind of validated that there's a market, there's a consumer, I have a potential demand, it's a good idea, and now we're going to start to get involved and get in that manufacturers involved at this point as you kind of move into step 4. So a lot of people will wait and go into the design and the testing and all of that before they have a manufacturer involved, and I'll walk through kind of what those issues are and why it's not a good idea, because you're gonna end up getting yourself into a position that you can't answer some of the questions or pricing, your margin, those kinds of things. So getting a manufacturer involved now to answer some of the questions through the design and development is obviously is important. Number 4, design and development. Creating that design, creating that specifications. What is the material of your product? Understanding the components and creating those kind of prototypes. Again, that's why you would really want to get that supplier involved, because you're not going to be able to understand the materials, the costing of the materials, the costing of the components, what the cost of the packaging is going to be, how is it going to be packed in a case pack and master pack, so that it will be able to flow through your distribution centers or through your customer channels, right? So it fits into their model, because every customer, every retailer has their specific requirements for shipping. And so understanding what that is now is all going to be important when you're developing and designing these products, because everything you see at retail has these critical elements to it to protect it to where you see it as a consumer, but there's a cost associated to that. So everybody has their own niche, and the supplier understands manufacturing. That's what they do. They don't understand the product development, or maybe the market, or maybe the sales, or maybe the supply chain, but they understand manufacturing. So getting them involved is important to be able to answer those questions. 5, as you go through that and you've all the specifications of your items and your product, you're now in that kind of testing and refinement. Like, listen, there's a couple clients and a couple brands within the industry. This is a year and a half, 2 year process of this testing and refinement. You need to be able to be confident and that when you start in production, that product is going to be successful and that there's not going to be any issues. So going through that testing and refinement of your idea is a critical step, partnering with the manufacturer to develop those prototypes and develop and those standards and develop those requirements and gathering that feedback from people in the field for yourself. You might realize that, man, every time it gets wet, this area gets slippery. That is critical to understand, so that once you go into production, that stuff's been eliminated, or you have the ability to correct it or communicate that to your customers. So understanding that and understanding that prototype refinement piece is important. And so you're really in that stage 2 where you're developing and designing and testing and refining with the help of your supplier to get that product idea really fine-tuned, because there's going to be things that the manufacturer is going to share with you. The factory is going to share with you that I didn't know that. I make it lighter, make it stronger, use this different coating of this material. But really partnering and having that relationship with your supplier is important, because they're going to be able to bring you some new innovation that might help refine some of that product that product idea that you have. All right, so you have the idea, you've designed it, you have an understanding of the strategy of the market, the competitive landscape. You've designed the idea. You got some prototypes. You're fishing it. You've tested it. It is all everything's kind of passing, if you will. But you haven't even started yet with customers, right? You're at this point, we're just focusing on the product. Now you're going to start to get into kind of that stage 3, which is that go-to-market strategy and understanding what that looks like. So before you ever start production, you start building a marketing strategy, you start putting any of those things together, you really have to understand what your go-to-market strategy is. Developing that now, before you ever even start into a production or a marketing strategy or how to launch or approaching my customers and going and actually selling your product, you've got to have a market strategy of how you're going to go to market. And here's why. You have distribution channels, you have direct consumer channels, you have mass merchant channels, you have independent channels. There's a wide range of ways for you to go to market. And understanding the costs associated with each way to go to market is important. You go through a distribution channel. Well, there's a margin that the distributor wants to make before he sells it to retail, because there's a service that he provides. Now, that balance between what the service that the distributor provides and what you need as a small business, that value's there. But it's important to understand that there's a cost associated to that. And if you don't have that built into your cost structure, then you're going to be forced to either reduce your margin, or you're going to be stuck and you're just not going to be able to go through that distribution channel. So really understanding what and developing what that go-to-market strategy is very important for you to determine long before you go into production. Because again, we're just talking about the product. We're talking about the features and the benefits. We haven't even gotten into the costing structures and all that. But that's where we're going. That's the second, the stage 3 that we're going to be talking about. But understanding what my go-to-market strategy is, so that I can understand and ensure that there's a place for the consumer, right, the end fisherman, to purchase that product. And if that is through a national retailer, if that's through independent retailers, or if that is through another distribution channel like social media, there's costs associated to that from a marketing standpoint, packaging, requirements, all those things that you've got to understand now before you ever put a price list together or go out and try to sell your product. So understanding what that go-to-market strategy is, what distribution channels do I want to take, and laying that foundation for those really starts back in that step 2 in stage 1. Start back there as you continue to refine your process. It'll really help you continue to build that pricing structure so that you do have the ability to add more quality onto the packaging because you can afford it, or you can update your case pack requirements because of the way that distribution channel is going. But understanding what that is important so that you don't find yourself into a pricing position or a position that you can't afford to do some of the marketing that you wanted to do, or the consumer events you wanted to do because you just don't have the margin built into it. So understanding that before you move on to this stage 3 is important. As how your consumer is going to find that product and through what channel it's going to find that product. So that's kind of end of stage 2, getting into stage 3, which really starts with marketing and your launch. Step 6 in this, and stage 3, that final piece is product's refined, product is good, you're happy, you're excited with it. It's gone through that refinement and testing. Now you're ready to try to market it and to start launching it. So this is where you start building that marketing strategy, you start developing that packaging, that branding, create a launch plan of how you're going to go to market, where you're going to go to market, as we just talked about, how you're going to introduce it through advertising and promotions, what distribution channels you're going to go through. But all of this has to understand how you're going to support your customer as well, not your consumer, but your customer. So putting in how you're going to support them through BDFs, which is brand development funds, co-ops, marketing co-ops, branding co-ops, sales spiffs, marketing POP, like point of purchase marketing within the stores. How are you going to support your customer along the way, and how you're going to, and what you're going to be able to afford to do within the developing the packaging, developing the branding, and what your marketing strategy is, so that you can understand, all right, here's my marketing plan, here's my budget, here's my go-to-market strategy. There's all going to be, budgets that you're going to be able to put together for each of these different scenarios. That's going to help you determine what you can afford and what your pricing structure is for that specific product. What's your overall margin mix based on your cost of goods, based on your marketing expenses, and all the other line items on your P&L that's going to allow you to afford to do some of these things. It's important to understand what those are so that you don't get in all of a sudden you get into a scenario where you're not making any money because the pricing is too low, and you set it too low too early, and you can't seem to afford to do all the things that you're setting out to do. So that's where it's really important to understand some of those big stages early on how you're going to position that through some of those areas we talked about earlier. So building that marketing and launch plan and what that's going to cost you is important to define and to understand, so that you don't get yourself into a margin issue, and all of a sudden you turn around 6 months, a year, 2 years later, and you're having to go with price increases, you're having to give your customers or raise your prices, or you're just simply not making money and you go out of business. We're in this business to make money, and it's important to understand your value, and especially within your product, and knowing what's going to go into that and what's going to eat away at that margin. So at the end of the day, there's still a profitable business is important. You defined it, you got your sourcing partner. So now, where I talked about, earlier, where you're having that product ideas, and now you have that source to be able to do that. You're going to start to get now into the supply chain aspect. You're launching your product. You know where it's going to go. You start having a launch plan, so you're talking to customers. You're building a strategy of when you're going to launch it, the seasonality you're going to launch it, how you're going to support it from a marketing standpoint, from a supply chain standpoint, from a social media and marketing standpoint. You've developed all of that, and now you're ready to kind of cut POs and purchase orders, and you start to flow that product in. And before you know it, your idea, your new widget, has become a business. Oh shit. That's where most people will be like, okay, now what? Having that, and it goes back to what I talked about earlier, having a good idea is just not good enough. You've got to understand the strategy and the plan before you go down that road of new product development or starting your own company. What is it that you want to accomplish? Come up with an innovation and sell it to one of the big companies? Or do you want to put your time in and make a real business out of it for 3 to 5 years? Do you want to take it into it? It's going to be, hey, I want to do this for the next 8 to 10 years. What is your business strategy, and how am I going to, how much time am I going to really put into this? Having those tough questions and understanding what the reality of it. Am I willing to put in the time and energy and effort? Listen, your job, whether it's your current job or it is this idea, it's a 14 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, is that all the time? No, but you're gonna be busting your balls to go and to get this idea, and you've got to be committed. So understanding what your bandwidth and what you're willing to put in to make this thing work is really what is going to set us apart. I've seen a lot of people that have great ideas, and they think just because they have a great idea that, oh, well, it's going to make millions of dollars. No, your energy, your tenacity, your passion, your drive, your excitement, those things are what make your business successful. Yes, of course, new innovation, new product, being innovative, being creative, all those things are important, but you need to have that energy and that drive and that passion to make your business successful, because at the end of the day, people, brands, customers, they buy into you. They buy into me. If I'm not passionate about what I'm talking about, how can you be passionate about what I'm talking about? So think about that when you're developing these new products and you're developing your business, that you're as much of the brand, if not more, than the logo, than the product. You've got to be passionate and be driving that and allowing that customer to feel that passion in everything you have, whether it's your product, your marketing, your sales pitches, all of that. Understand what you're going to put into this, and deciding if it's a short-term or it's a long-term business goal for you. Having that product idea is the first step, but as you can see, there's a lot of steps and stages through this process of developing that idea and bringing it to market to be successful. So listen, it's not complicated, it's just complex. So having that experience is important, and gaining that experience quickly will help you shorten that timetable, make it less expensive, and be able to give you kind of that that heartburn free, if you will. You're still going to have heartburn, but you're just probably going to have less. I'd love for you to comment if you have ideas that you want to share, you want help with, you need help with. You can get on and contact me at dreisbachsons.com and get on my calendar. I'll be happy to answer some quick questions for you. I love this industry. I'm passionate about this industry, but so many people develop an idea hoping that it's going to be successful, hoping that they're going to have somebody to buy it. You got to take hope out of that strategy. Hope is not a strategy. You can like and follow and subscribe to all of my social media at The Strategy Sherpa on YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn. There's a lot of people that are out there answering the surface level questions but not diving deep. We're going to be diving really deep into these categories. So if you have a category, if you have a question that hasn't been answered, if you can't answer, shoot me a note. I'd love to answer those questions, and I'd love to be able to put a deep dive from my experience into those into those questions that you may have to help you become a better businessman, to be able to grow your business within this within the fishing industry. And I'm just here to support you. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate all the support and love. God bless.